Let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to travel back with me, over 800 years in time, straight to the cold, open grasslands of Mongolia. The wind is fierce, the sky is just endlessly wide, and somewhere out there in a small tent on the empty steppe, a boy is about to be born into a world that is going to show him absolutely no mercy. The year is 1162. His mother, Hoylun, holds him in her arms and looks down at his tiny hand. And right there in his newborn fist, he's clutching a dark clot of blood, exactly the size of a knuckle. The elders of the tribe start whispering. To them, this was a massive omen, a clear sign that this boy was destined to be a great warrior. His father named him Temüjin, after an enemy he'd just captured. Of course, no one had any idea what that name or that little boy would actually become. Section 1. A boy born with nothing. To really understand his story, we have to grasp the brutal reality of the nomadic Mongolian steppe. We're talking about a world with no cities, no books, and definitely no great stone walls to keep you safe at night. Surviving out there required uncompromising mental and physical strength, and your entire life could shatter in a literal instant. When Temüjin was just 9 years old, his father Yasuge was poisoned by a rival group called the Tatars. And the really tragic irony here, they broke the most sacred rule of the steppe to do it. They offered him hospitality and food, but hid a slow-acting poison inside. Right after his father died, the men of his own clan just refused to follow a child. They took all the animals, packed up, and rode off, completely abandoning Temüjin's family. Section 2. Hunger, Loss, and Betrayal. So Temüjin's real story begins in absolute starvation. The winters that hit them were brutal. The cold was like a physical wall. His mother taught the kids how to dig for roots in the frozen, unforgiving dirt, scraping by on whatever tiny animals they could catch just to stay breathing. And under that kind of extreme pressure, conflict was just inevitable, even inside their own family. Over a totally minor argument about food, Temüjin and his brother actually killed their older half-brother. It's a dark, violent moment for sure, but it perfectly reflects the grim lesson Temüjin was internalizing. There was zero room for division on the steppe. If you wanted to survive, you needed total, absolute unity. Section 3. Captivity and the Wooden Collar. Just as he was finally growing into a young man, a former allied clan, the Temüjin, noticed him. They realized Temüjin was turning into a real threat. So, they came in the dead of night and captured a boy who had already survived so much, dragging him right back down to the absolute lowest depths of human desperation. They locked this massive, heavy wooden collar around his neck. And this wasn't just about physical restraint. It was a symbol. It meant you were livestock. You were less than human. It was designed specifically to crush a person's spirit, forcing them to carry the heavy weight of their own humiliation day and night. Just let the weight of that sit with you for a second. But here's the thing about Temüjin. His spirit didn't break. He just watched, and he waited. One night, he finally struck the guard holding his rope and vanished into the pitch black, actually submerging himself in a freezing river just to hide. And it was right there that a man named Sorkhan Shira risked his own life to hide the shivering teenager under a huge pile of wool. It was an incredibly dangerous, life-saving act of kindness, and one that Temüjin would never, ever forget. Section 4. The Rise of a Leader. A few years go by, and Temüjin finally returns to claim Borte, the wife his father had arranged for him way back when he was a kid. For a very brief moment, he had warmth and quiet, but the steppe was violent, and peace, well, peace never really lasted. Out of nowhere, a tribe called the Merkits attacked their camp, and Borte was kidnapped as a prize of war. Now, a lot of men on the steppe would have just accepted that harsh reality and moved on. But not Temüjin. He reached out to a powerful Khan and to his own childhood best friend, Jamuka. They were Anda, which basically means a brother chosen by the heart, not by blood. Together, they rode fiercely into Merkit territory, absolutely destroyed the camp, and brought Borte home. This was the exact moment people looked at Temüjin and realized, okay, this is a man worth following.
But the steppe really wasn't big enough for two rising stars. As both of their followings grew, you start to see this inevitable fracture between the two childhood friends. What started as friendship slowly decayed into a bitter rivalry, and eventually into all-out war. Because at their core, they held two fundamentally different visions of what power actually looked like.
Jamuka was undeniably a brilliant military mind, but his methods were horrific. To project strength, he actually boiled prisoners alive. He ruled through absolute terror and promoted men solely based on their noble birth. Temüjin, on the other hand, was completely revolutionizing their society. He shared his wealth with his people. He promoted men based purely on their skill on the battlefield, completely ignoring their family names. And he always remembered past kindnesses, like the man who hid him under the wool all those years ago. Temüjin chose to build his power on unbreakable loyalty.
Section 5. The Universal Ruler.
Because his approach to leadership was so incredibly radical, warriors just kept flocking to his banner. And by 1206, the impossible actually happened. A massive council, called a Kurultai, was held on the banks of the Onon River. It drew together generations of fractured, warring tribes who finally agreed to stop killing each other. They laid out a white felt carpet, lifted Temüjin into the air, and gave him a brand new title. He wasn't the starving boy abandoned on the steppe anymore. He was Genghis Khan, the universal ruler.
And this is where his true genius shines through. He didn't just conquer things, he organized them. He implemented the yasa, which was this strict, overarching system of law and order. He completely dismantled old tribal loyalties by rebuilding his army into a mathematically precise decimal structure, groups of tens, hundreds, and thousands. He even created a lightning-fast horseback messenger system that acted like the internet of the ancient world. He literally transformed chaos into this profound, terrifyingly disciplined society.
Section 6. An unstoppable global storm.
With the steppe entirely united, this highly organized, incredibly disciplined storm turned its gaze outward. First, they looked toward the massive, walled cities of northern China. Keep in mind, Genghis Khan had literally never seen a city wall in his life, but he was about to show the world just how fast he could adapt and tear them down. His strategy was chillingly simple. It was a binary choice: surrender, open your gates, and you live. In fact, if you were a merchant, a scholar, or an engineer, you were highly valued and protected. But if you resisted, he unleashed total, absolute devastation. And it wasn't just blind rage. It was a highly calculated psychological message directed right at the next city down the road.
That devastation didn't take long to sweep westward. What's crazy is that Genghis Khan actually tried to establish peaceful trade with the vast Khwarezmian Empire first, but their Shah made a fatal mistake. He murdered the Mongol ambassadors. When Genghis Khan heard this, he retreated alone up a mountain for 3 days of absolute silence. When he finally came back down, the retaliation was practically apocalyptic. We are talking about prosperous cities holding hundreds of thousands of people being quite literally wiped off the map.
Fast forward to 1227. Genghis Khan is in his 60s, still out on campaign, and he dies. To this day, the exact cause of his death remains a mystery, and honestly, he wanted it exactly that way. He demanded to be buried in total secrecy, leaving absolutely no mark behind. His loyal soldiers carried his body all the way back to Mongolia, And legend says they slaughtered anyone unfortunate enough to witness the funeral procession just to guarantee his enemies could never desecrate his grave. And it worked. His tomb has never been found.
Yet, out of all that unimaginable destruction comes this truly extraordinary paradox. The empire he built eventually stretched all the way from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia down to the Persian Gulf. Because of the strict laws and the incredibly safe roads his armies carved across the earth, global trade just exploded. Ideas, technologies, and cultures touched for the very first time. He violently shattered the ancient world, yes, but in doing so, he connected it more deeply than it had ever been connected before.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I'd love for you to just take a quiet moment. Really sit with the sheer weight of this history. A boy who started with absolutely nothing, shivering in a wooden collar of slavery, grew up to alter the very fabric of human civilization. So what is the actual lesson we're supposed to take away from all of this?
Well, maybe it's simply this. History doesn't ask us to neatly separate the good from the bad. Temüjin adapted, he persisted against all odds, and he united a wildly fractured people. He also made terrifying choices and caused immense, undeniable suffering. The truest kind of history doesn't ask us to love him, and it doesn't ask us to hate him. It just asks us simply to understand.
And as you seek to understand these massive stories, remember your own journey. Just like Temüjin never stopped pushing forward, neither should you. Every new concept you grasp, every piece of history you digest, is another step on your own path of knowledge. You're here, you're listening, you're learning, and honestly, that is a beautiful victory in itself.
If this story resonated with you, I want to leave you with a really warm recommendation. Check out the book Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. It is so deeply researched, and I promise it will completely change how you view history. As we part ways today, I'll just leave you with this final thought. If a starving boy in a wooden collar can reshape the entire globe, what borders in your own world are just waiting to be torn down?